for joining us today. Before we get started this morning, I want to acknowledge the tragic events that have unfolded in Western North Carolina. Our department extends its deepest condolences to our neighbors as they continue the cleanup and recovery process in the wake of Hurricane Helene. As we have stated before, in times of crisis, the boundary lines of our jurisdiction are erased. CMPD is resolute in supporting its neighbors in search and rescue operations, securing facilities, and delivering vital supplies such as food and water. Over the last week, CMPD has deployed a rotation of officers to the region. Those teams are assisting our law enforcement partners with responding to calls for service, conducting drone searches, recovery efforts, and establishing communication technology to the hardest hit areas of Black Mountain, Montreat, and Swannanoa. Our commitment and support will remain steadfast in the ongoing rescue and recovery efforts, and we will stand with our Western North Carolina community as they heal and recover from this tragic event. This morning, the CMPD is releasing its third quarter public safety report. This public safety briefing allows CMPD to share crime data in greater depth, as well as share our public safety information, enforcement, and proactive measures. We believe this report is extremely important, not just for our department, but for our community. The importance of this media briefing is to be transparent about crime statistics and trends in our community, what we as a police department are doing to fight against crime, and our continued desire to collaborate with our community in ongoing public safety efforts. We are extremely proud of the dedication and effort of all of our officers and all CMPD employees. Today, we will share a complete overview of crime statistics through the third quarter, which spans the dates of January 1st through September 30th of this year. Part of that is arrests are up 3%, juvenile arrests are flat, and gun seizures are up 3%. We have speakers today who will provide a more in-depth dive into our third quarter public safety report and what that means. Please note we will take questions at the conclusion of the presentation, and everything we share today will be sent out in a press release, added to our website, and on our social media channels. Joining us first will be CMPD Deputy Chief Jackie Briley over our Special Services Group, followed by Major Ryan Butler, who is over our Patrol Northwest service area. Deputy Chief Briley.
Thank you, Lieutenant Fletcher. Good morning. I'm Deputy Chief Jackie Briley. I'm over the Special Services Group here at Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. Every day, our officers rise to the challenge to protect and serve this great city. As the city of Charlotte continues its rapid growth, remaining one of the fastest growing cities in our nation, our officers remain steadfast in their dedication to our community. At the end of the third quarter, CMPD responded to 294,695 calls for service. That's a 3% increase. That means someone called 911 and an officer showed up over 294,000 times. The total overall police interactions during this time was 409,396. That is an increase of 2%. Through the third quarter of 2024, the overall crime rate in the city of Charlotte flattened, with property crime down 1% and violent crime up 6%. In our mid-year public safety briefing, the property crime rate flattened after a significant increase that was driven by the Kia Hyundai Theft social media challenge in mid-2022, most of which involved juvenile offenders. We've seen the number of larceny from auto incidents decrease by 9% through the third quarter of 2024. These stats speak directly to the great efforts of our officers and proactive patrols in our highest incident areas. The involvement of young people in criminal activity in our community, unfortunately, continues to drive the increases we see in our data. Our officers, and especially our JADE initiative, put in a tremendous amount of work investigating cases and identifying repeat offenders. Unfortunately, to the disappointment of some of our officers, these offenders are often released back to the custody of their parents or guardians, who in some cases are struggling to control these juveniles themselves and actually looking to CMPD for assistance in some of these cases. Many will reoffend within weeks, days, or even hours of their last infraction or interaction with law enforcement. We saw success with our J-Teens program proactive visits just ahead of our July 4th celebration in Uptown this past holiday. Of the 32 home visits made, only one reoffended. The Jade home visits allowed our officers to build a rapport with not just the juvenile involved, but their parents and guardians, as well as our officers provided resources for conflict resolution, guidance, and mentorship. This reinforces our mission, and we're not looking to simply arrest juvenile offenders, but we are truly looking for a change in behavior and for them and their families to have positive outcomes. We want to help guide the youth in our community on the right path, and there are some successes that we continue to build on. Now I'll go ahead and transition to specifically violent crime. In the third quarter of 2024, we've seen an increase in violent crime 6%. Our homicide rate at this time is up 28% with 83 victims. However, our detectives and our CSIs work around the clock on these cases, and it shows in the work. Currently, they have a clearance rate of 70%, which is significantly higher than the national average of 52%. Our patrol divisions are also doing a tremendous job of strategically positioning officers in some of the city's highest priority areas. An area of concern we want to focus on during this quarterly update is the trend of aggravated assaults. An aggravated assault occurs when a weapon is used in the commission of that assault, as well as serious injuries or a life-threatening injury has occurred. Early in the third quarter, on July 9th, we conducted a media briefing right here in this command center that was tied to a series of shootings that detectives determined that were linked to Metro and Still Creek Division. During the course of these shootings, 58-year-old Mustafa Muhammad was killed while traveling on Statesville Avenue. The suspect shot into Mr. Muhammad's vehicle as they were driving by, striking and killing him. Violent crimes like this are an absolute concern for us. Even before we shared this series information with you, our officers were already working increased patrols in the area. And as a result of the exhaustive efforts and great police work, officers located and arrested one juvenile suspect, who's 16, and a second suspect who is 18 years old, Carlos Roberto Diaz, in connection with this investigation. Many of these incidents shed light on the glaring disregard for human life by suspects involved in these incidents, or incidents where guns are used to settle minor disputes in our city. At CMPD, we are committed to doing our part, but in order to address this issue effectively, we must have a collaborative approach that involves CMPD, the North Carolina Department of Justice, the judges who preside over these cases in our juvenile court system, and the attorneys who serve these young people in our court system. We have an ask from our community right now. CMPD for years has taken the lead on numerous youth programs such as REACH, Envision, PAL, and many other programs that we've led that have shown great success and positive outcomes with our youth. We need leaders in our community groups, leaders in our churches, leaders in the business community, and just leaders overall to take the lead or take a small step. It can start with something as simple as becoming a mentor to a young person in our city. We have well-known established organizations all over our city, such as the Big Brothers and Big Sisters program. They're right here in our backyard. It costs absolutely nothing to be a mentor to a young person in our city. With hundreds of kids waiting to be matched with someone, you or anybody else you know could be the difference in the trajectory of that young person's life. Again, it's going to take all of us and not just CMPD. So I'll step aside briefly and allow Ryan Butler to discuss some of our violent crimes.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Riley. Morning. One of the contributing factors for the increase in third quarter violent crime are organized retail crime incidents. The city's seen a rise in these crimes, which are increasingly violent, threatening the safety of retail employees and customers. Through the third quarter, CMPD has investigated well over 900 incidents of organized retail crime. Here in Charlotte, we take organized retail theft very seriously. These crimes impact our business partners and our community in many ways. Commonly targeted items include high-value goods like designer clothing, electronics, power tools, and medications. In response, our department has ramped up efforts to combat organized retail theft through initiatives like the Organized Retail Crime Task Force. This task force works towards increased offender accountability, improved case clearances, and collaborates with retailers to reduce losses and prevent further escalation. The task force meets monthly to collaborate, share information, and strategize on addressing organized retail crime. This effort strengthens partnerships between law enforcement, retail, and other stakeholders to ensure effective responses to emerging threats and criminal activities. The success of the task force relies heavily on collaboration and dedication of its stakeholders. Their contributions are essential to the task force's ability to promptly identify offenders, develop strategies, and implement solutions that benefit the entire community. These stakeholders include the District Attorney's Office, the Secret Service, Homeland Security Investigations, the United States Attorney's Office, and a network of law enforcement partners from surrounding jurisdictions. The Organized Retail Crime Task Force has been operational for approximately 7 years and assisted with the recent identification of a robbery case we had in September. Our officers led apprehension efforts for common law robbery organized theft ring suspects who committed numerous shoplifting incidents throughout the city. These shoplifting incidents turned into common law robberies when the suspects sprayed store employees with bear spray as they were approached in order to complete their theft and flee from the scene. In total, 5 suspects were involved in 4 different cases. In 3 of these cases, bear spray was used to assault victims during the theft. The most recent case occurred on September 1st in CMPD's Providence Division at the Harris Teeter located at 6701 Carnegie Boulevard. The suspects used clothing to disguise their appearances and used the same getaway car in these cases. As a result of the work of the task force, detectives identified 2 suspects involved and were able to link 3 additional suspects as well. On Friday, September 20th, officers arrested and charged the following suspects in connection with these incidents. Zaniyah Howard, 18 years old, Severia Davis, 19 years old, Heaven Manning, 20 years old, Amaya Beatty, 22 years old, and Shaquilla Martin, 29 years old. The dedicated efforts of our officers and detectives in apprehending these suspects have had a positive impact on the community, with 4 of these suspects remaining in custody currently. These officers have been working tirelessly to disrupt sophisticated theft rings responsible for large-scale losses to local businesses. Through diligent investigations, surveillance, and coordination with retailers, they have successfully identified and apprehended numerous suspects involved in these criminal networks. The work of the task force not only helps reduce financial losses for businesses, but also improves public safety by curbing illegal activities often associated with organized retail crime, such as fraud and violent crime. These actions send a clear message to offenders, contributing to a safer and more secure community environment. The collaboration between law enforcement, businesses, and community members continues to strengthen as officers remain vigilant in addressing this ongoing issue. I'll now turn it back over to Deputy Chief Riley to speak about some encouraging news for the 4th quarter.
Thank you, Major Butler. So there are 2 exciting things on the horizon for 4th quarter we're excited to share. As everyone knows, recruitment is one of Chief Jennings' top priorities for our department. Just last week, the 197th recruit class graduated from our training academy. 48 new officers received their badges following an 8-month extensive training program that they completed successfully. We could not be happier to continue to strengthen our numbers and continue to increase the numbers of officers in our city. Our recruitment division continues to do a tremendous job of bolstering CMPD's presence by attending career fairs at universities and military bases. Our Public Affairs Division has also produced marketing and a video series highlighting the numerous opportunities within our department. At the end of the 3rd quarter, hiring for the department increased by 76%. Additionally, we've seen 30% increase in sworn applications this year. In the 4th quarter, CMPD will add an additional recruit class 200. This will be the first time CMPD has held 4 recruit classes in 1 calendar year. We anticipate a good number of recruits for this class in December as they embark on their journey. In addition to Recruit Class 200, we are also looking forward to the launch of our Civilian Crash Investigators program by the end of this year. The goal of this program is to have a number of trained civilians investigate property damage only crashes within the CMPD jurisdiction. In 2022, our officers spent more than 31,000 hours responding to these types of crashes. This program will help alleviate the number of hours our officers spend responding to these types of calls and free them up for higher priority calls for service. They will participate in a 4-week training program to obtain their certification through the North Carolina Justice Academy. As you can see behind me, the vehicles have been fully wrapped with the Civilian Crash logo, and this is what it will look like when they're out and about in our community. They will have an amber light package as opposed to a blue light package, and the logo and markings are installed to help our citizens and our community members differentiate between the civilian crash investigators and our sworn police officers. We hope to share more images and information in the coming weeks as this new initiative is coming to our community. This concludes the end of our third quarter public safety briefing. At this time, I'll take any questions. Yes, ma'am.
There's an unfortunate new trend in several neighborhoods with children fighting and then parents getting involved. And this is what I'm hearing from the residents, and getting shot and becoming a fatality, like what happened on Winding Way the other day. Can you speak a little bit about this, because we're noticing this all over the different neighborhoods?
Well, as I said earlier, unfortunately, it's more common than not that people are settling disputes with guns. It's sad for us. It's sad for the community. We don't want children involved in violence, and let alone the parents engaged in the violence as well. We've spent time trying to work with community partners in some type of conflict resolution. At the end of the day, we have to be able to rely on the parents to come through and show the children involved in these disagreements that it doesn't have to result to gun violence. At the end, they can disagree or have issues with each other, but then walk away from it, because there's more than just one life impacted by that. It's the person who pulled that trigger and that person's family as well. Yes, sir.
What is organized retail crime? How is it different from like a regular robbery where somebody goes into a 7-Eleven and robs something?
Major Butler, you want to take that?
So what the group tends to see is it's not just like a one-off, a particular individual. It's like we see the same groups of people over and over again. So it's not just going into a store, commit one robbery. It's a group of violent thieves who are targeting a particular retailer. It could be going into a hardware retailer and walking out with power tools. It could be going into a fragrance store or a women's clothing store and targeting particular brands of clothing. And a lot of times they will take that and then resell it either online through a fence, or sometimes they're actually packaging up these items and shipping them in connexes overseas. So it's not just hey, you and I are driving down the street, let's go in and steal something. This is intentional, this is thought out. A lot of times these are not just regional. We're seeing suspects who are moving up and down the East Coast, who are moving all over the Southeast, committing these types of offenses, and they have no issue with escalating their behavior. If violence is required in order for them to get the property that they're after, they will not hesitate to use it.
So these people are repeat offenders of these types of crimes. Are the people that you showed us from the Harris Teeter case repeat offenders? Did
they were identified, the initial two that were identified by our task force detectives were identified because of familiarity in previous criminal investigations. All right.
Yes, sir.
There seem to have been a lot of cases over the past year of shootings into occupied dwellings. Have those been on the rise year over year, and if so, why do you think that is?
I don't have the specific numbers, but we have seen an increase in shooting into occupied dwellings, not only an increase in the amount of incidents, but also an increase in the amount of bullets fired into these homes. Sadly enough, sometimes the intended target of these homes are not there, or the intended target is not the one that is suffering the injuries. Obviously, we've had cases in the past where young people were hurt in these cases. Again, it all goes back to, honestly, some of it can be attributed to social media. Someone has an issue with somebody, and so the way they want to solve that issue is they want to drive by someone's house and fire, 30, 40 rounds into someone's residence. And again, there's no regard for the backdrop. There's no regard for other homes or apartments next to it. And we show up because that's what we do, and we try to work these cases the best we can. And we use Crime Stoppers as much as we can. And what we try to do is when we do make cases, we try to make really strong, solid cases so that way we can take those across the street to the DA's office and hopefully get these violent offenders off the street. Yes, sir.
For the officers that are in Western North Carolina helping with the recovery effort, do you know the number that are out there right now? And are they doing it on a volunteer basis, or are they doing it, are they being paid by the department to be out there?
I don't have an exact number. We send anywhere between 10 to 12 officers and supervisory staff up there. They are being paid by the department, and it is all on a volunteer basis. And we've had hundreds of officers volunteer to go up there and help, and they're doing everything from, as Lieutenant Fletcher stated, rescue efforts, cutting down trees, carrying water, anything that's needed of them, they're doing. Yes, ma'am.
In regards to the response on Helene, has there been any local in Charlotte, any reports of looting into homes or other concerns from the storm?
I've not received any information on that. We could research that, and Public Affairs could provide you with a specific answer for that. Yes, sir.
Last week, there was an officer-involved shooting incident involving a man named Marcus Schenkel. We've learned since that happened that the murder charges against him were dropped. Is that frustrating for the department? And knowing that they were dropped, why was it important to mention in your release that he had once been charged with murder?
Well, what I will do is I'll refrain from speaking about an individual case, as that is still an ongoing investigation. Speaking broadly and in general, it is always a frustration for officers and detectives when we work cases and things maybe don't go the way we'd like to see it. There's always multitude of issues that could contribute to that. It could have issues with witnesses, with the case, with anything else. So I don't know the specifics of that case, but in a general response, we're always frustrated when there's a lot of work and energy and time put into cases, and we may not see the outcome that we would like, not just for us, but for the victims as well. Yes, ma'am. Or yes, sir.
For the investigative crew for crash scenes, what kind of background or interview process is involved? Do you do background searches on the people trying to become part of this? And what kind of safety precautions are they sort of given permission to use when going to a scene? Like, are they given like a pepper spray or something, or anything like that, or are they sort of just in a regular uniform?
So they will be, and we're going to do a full rollout when we're closer to the end of the year for this, and we'll be able to answer a lot of those questions in more detail. But they will be trained, as like I said, a 4-week training academy that they have to go through. They are background checked, just like they're CMPD employees. They're City of Charlotte employees, so there is an extensive background check that they have to go through. There was an interview process as well, and so they will only be responding to property damage crashes. So if there is injury involved, if there is suspected DWI, anything that will involve a police response, then police officers will be dispatched. They will actually have police radios and body camera as well. All right, thank you.
Thank you all again for joining us today. If you have any other questions, you can email our CMPD PIO email box. Also, we will be putting all the information that we shared today in a press release and sending that out, as well as on our website. If you need the spelling of Deputy Chief Jackie Briley's name, it's JACKIEBRYLEY. And if you need the spelling of Major Ryan Butler's name, it's RYANBUTLER. Thank you.